Hi, everyone. This is Caroline from Fiat Integrative Health in Franklin, Tennessee, and you're listening to the Fiat Health Podcast. We believe that now more than ever, the healthcare industry has become a place of confusion. And over the years, we have been asked countless questions about what true health and integration for the whole person looks like. Join us every other week as we explore topics ranging from primary care and women's health to counseling and spiritual health. We're so glad you're here. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fiat Health Podcast. My name is Caroline. I'm a nurse practitioner and co-founder of Fiat Integrative Health. And today I'm joined by Lucy, one of our counselors.
Hello.
So good to be with you today.
Excited to be back. It was fun doing the first one.
Yeah, it was a really great episode. I've gotten a lot of great feedback, and I know you have too, about being a working mother. Today, though, we're going to go really deep, really quick, I feel like, which is anybody who knows me knows I love that. But we're going to talk about sin and trauma. I mean, doesn't get much deeper.
Nope, not surface level here today.
Oh, I love it. So Lucy came to me with this idea of this podcast, I think because she had an existential crisis that led to this.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share with us just kind of what brought about this whole idea.
Yeah, I was telling you a little bit of this background, but like a year ago when I was first really seeing clients on a really regular basis, I was having kind of this crisis of faith, of self, of like so many people, what we're talking about in my sessions, in our counseling sessions, is their sin. And like me getting to sit there and hear all the stories going along with it, have so much empathy and compassion for them and their sin, and getting, like it makes sense the way that everyone sins, given everyone's stories. And so I was like, why are we yelling at them about their sin in the church? Why are we condemning them or telling them it's bad? Which obviously it is bad. But I think that was just like hard for me to reconcile, being able to see all the hurt and trauma that wasn't their fault with having the fault placed on them for this sin. And so then I came up with this like new way that I think about sin from this and from thinking about trauma. And yeah, all this time spent sitting with people talking about their stories. And gosh, okay, how do I explain it without my visual? But I think realizing, we would never blame people for their trauma. We would never say like, it's your fault that you suffered abuse or whatever. And we would never say that God like wished that for them.
Sure.
But from like our trauma, it really impacts us. That's really why it's trauma, is its impact on us and its impact on our stories and the ways we view ourselves and others in the world. So trauma leads to these like negative beliefs about ourselves or others or the world. And from that, we can often act in sin. Or the alternative can be to like seek deeper healing and to seek deeper conversion and deeper trust in the Lord. And often that looks like looking back at the trauma and the negative beliefs in order to find that deeper healing. Did that make sense?
I mean, I think so. I think first, it might be good to define, like, what do we mean exactly by sin?
Yeah.
Especially in the context that we're talking about, someone who maybe isn't even Christian. How would you define sin?
Oh, no, I told you had to answer that question. I mean, I think usually when I'm thinking of sin, I'm thinking of the like things that would be listed on an examination of conscience prior to confession. But you're right. To a non-Christian, it's like the actions we do that hurt our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves, or our relationship with others is kind of the big picture way I think about it.
Yeah.
How would you say?
Yeah, I think, similarly of like anything, God is love. And so kind of anything that goes against that love, whether it's love of yourself, God, or others, is a sin. Now, I think everybody can have a distorted view of love because of maybe how they were raised or their experience with other people. And I think too, we live in an age of moral relativism. And so it's very difficult for people to say, well, that's wrong. It's you do you, whatever you feel like is right is right.
Mm-hmm.
Where sin, if we say somebody sin, like, gosh, that feels like really kind of abrasive.
Yes. I think that's why I had such a hard time with the word for so long.
Yeah.
And kind of partly where this came from.
Mm-hmm. It's because the world is like, oh, don't tell anybody they're doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, you're so judgmental.
Yeah. How
could
dare
you do
tell
that?
me that I'm sinning?
Yeah. But I mean, so yeah, I'd say the definition, I guess you would say, is sin is an offense against reason, truth, and your conscience, right? So God gives us our conscience to know what is right and wrong. He gives us reason. He gives us truth. So like anything that goes against that would be a sin. And obviously you have like the 10 Commandments. That like lines out the big sin. The most examination of consciences go through the 10 Commandments and how those can be kind of lived out in various ways. But yeah, I feel like kind of having an idea of what sin is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
What are some examples that you see? You're saying that everyone was coming to you and just talking about their sin. Like, what are some common threads that you're seeing?
Gosh, all over the board. I mean, there's like anger and anger itself not being a sin, anger being a feeling. But that's a pretty good example of like where we can act out of anger into sin by yelling, by being mean, by hurting others. Or pornography and masturbation being a sin that comes out of like often these deep trauma and deep wounds. Gosh, there's so many others, but yeah, all across the board. Really,
like gossip, I feel like is another one.
Gossip. Yeah, just like not charitably loving often the people that are closest to us, our family members.
And of course, there's like sins of omission. So that would be like, maybe I should have done something and I didn't. I should have helped that old lady across the street, but I was too busy. Or, I should have helped my son out when he needed something, but instead I chose to keep scrolling on my phone. Because I didn't want to do that. Just speaking to myself. Okay, great. So what you're saying is that you hear a lot, people come and they're like, look at all these terrible things I'm doing, and then you start to dig deeper. You hear their story and you're making a huge connection between the trauma they've had with the product then being this sin in their life.
And sometimes it's definitely not always sin. Sometimes it's just like things that, trauma connecting to ways they are that they don't want to be, whether that be anxious or anything else.
And then in terms of like, give me an example of how you saw some, let's say sin or negative behavior, I'll call it that too, and how that connected to a particular thought pattern and kind of how you like just dig deeper and how that affects just the whole therapeutic process.
Yeah. I was recently talking to a client about this who in confession, the priest had encouraged her to like reflect on where that sin was coming from. And she was like, well, if it came from like, I don't know, like anger or sadness or whatever, like were those the sins? And I was like, no. I don't think that's what he was saying. I think he was encouraging the deeper reflection so that you can have the deeper healing, so that you can then go and sin no more.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And so often when people are coming with these, things that they want different in their lives, I'm saying like, okay, where do we think that comes from? Why does that make sense? Like, how can we have compassion with yourself rather than shaming yourself and yelling at yourself for the ways that you are? How can we say like, wow, that's actually a bigger part of my story. And like that makes sense. One of my favorite like interventions that I have a lot of my clients do is like talking to that little piece of themselves. So let's say, I don't know, this is an example from my own life. When Chris and I were first dating, I used to get jealous of like any woman he talked to, which was from like some of my own wounds from past relationships. And so then something I would do when I noticed that jealousy pop up, completely unfounded, just in case that wasn't clear, I would be like, okay, little jealous Lucy, like that makes sense. You're feeling that way given what you've been through, but we're not dating that person we dated in high school anymore. We're dating Chris. They are very different. And I call it like the thank you but technique. Like, thank you so much. That part of my brain that's trying to help me, that's trying to protect me from being jealous. but you're not needed right now. I've got it. Chris and I are different,
No, that's awesome. I'm trying to think of, I just went to confession yesterday. So I'm like, run me through, let's just like use me as an example. Gosh, I need to do better examinations of consciences.
Relatable.
But let's say like, for me, I often find that I act out in impatience towards my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through maybe like what you would do to try and like go through the route and things that like I can do on my own to like try and really dig into that to see if maybe there isn't, maybe I'm human,
yeah.
And I'm impatient. And
that is 100% true.
Totally could be that.
But the other half can also be true at the same time.
Totally.
Mutually exclusive. I think I would ask questions similar to what the priest asked my client of like, okay, where do you think that impatience is coming from? What of your own needs are not being met in those moments that you're then not being able to give the patience to your kids?
Mm-hmm. So like for me, I tend to be distracted with other things, or like, maybe I'm answering a patient or even trying to catch up on work or something, and they need something, and I have 6 kids. And so maybe many of them need something at the same time, and they're loud, and they're, some of my kids will sometimes be like, Earth to Mom.
You don't look forward to this days.
I know, because they're like, clearly I'm not answering them. And so, and then it's just like, it all bubbles up and I explode.
Yeah.
And, part of me thinks like, okay, if I just didn't have to do work right now or whatever, then, if I'm like, I could be totally scrolling mindlessly on something too. Definitely possible. Then I wouldn't be so angry, which is like,
yeah,
I don't think totally true.
One of my favorite questions, and I feel like this could apply to like a broad range of sins, is like, okay, how is that impatience or insert other sin keeping you safe in that moment? How is it trying to help you?
That is such a good question. I mean, I feel like let's say in that particular circumstance, it's like, okay, I feel this pressure. Now, maybe this is a truth, but maybe it's a lie, right? Of like, or the thought is like, gosh, I just really need to get this done. This is a priority for me right now. Or like, I just feel so behind. Or it is an urgent matter, maybe, So yeah, I feel like that's kind of what's going through my brain. And that's like, the safety mechanism would be more, I guess, I don't know. What would the safety mechanism in that be?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, is the impatience trying, in some ways, literally just to protect your thought process from being interrupted? Is it trying to protect these other areas of needs in your life? Because you have more than one area of need. Your kids are not the only need in your life. Yeah, is it feeling like, trying to protect it because it feels like those, or you feel, again, truly or untruly, that area isn't getting enough attention or is being like there's a scarcity of attention for it?
Yes.
All of the above.
All of that rings true. And then I think there's another thing though of like, okay, I could definitely say, brain, this is not as much of a priority as you think it is, like, I guess would be my thought of like, how do I get out of this pattern of like being impatient and then acting out at the kids in terms of whether that's an anger and yelling or just my own, gosh, yesterday it was like, I just was like, okay, I'm going to try and get an hour done once we get home from school pickup and everything. And it was like, I could not do a single thing. And, I was yelling. I'm not actually a yeller. So when I say yelling, like I know other people who are yellers. More of like I'm being impatient, right? But then all the kids start doing it. It just like bleeds out. And I'm like watching them and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. There I am. I'm watching this sibling, be impatient with this sibling, just how I was just impatient with you. Like this is me sowing these seeds, And it's like, okay, how do I stop it, Lucy?
I know. I think the question I asked and like having better understanding of, where that sin, impatience is coming from is so helpful because that's what you can recall in those moments. In those moments, you can be like, okay, I am feeling this impatient because I don't feel like I have enough attention for these other things that also need me, or because, any of the other things I already said. And that can sometimes help diffuse our emotions in the moment because we're showing ourselves compassion, and it's hard to like still be angry when we're showing ourselves compassion. And then you get to like maybe have 0.5 seconds more of control over your reaction than you did the time before.
How do you feel like it relates to trauma?
Do you feel like your impatience relates to trauma?
I have a really hard time with the word trauma.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a buzzword
thrown around.
Yeah. In the last, 5 years, maybe. I mean, maybe more. But
do you prefer the Catholic version of the word wound?
Yeah. No, actually, I don't. I don't like any of it. No, I'm just kidding.
Caroline has no trauma or wounds.
No, actually, I'm very prideful. So that's why I do everything right and I have no wounds. I think that, it's been really hard for me to grasp it. I heard from Sister Miriam at a Healing the Whole Person retreat that I went to. She just explained how like trauma can be that like stabbing wound and it can be paper cuts. And I think I grew up in a relatively stable, very stable home, right. So I think like I'm more of a paper cut kind of person.
Yeah.
And I also this is a whole conversation for its own self, but like, I think there can be like an overemphasis on trauma personally. And so I don't know, that's like a fine line. Anyways.
I agree. You and I recently were talking about like an over focus on health or an over focus on trauma.
Yeah.
So this might be an example of like, I could ask you more questions. I could be like, how was impatience shown to you when you were a kid?
Sure.
How was it when you acted or asked your parents, interrupted your parents? What were you met with?
Right.
But this might be an example of like, we might be over focusing on trauma in your specific example.
Right. Like, are we really acting out of like a deep seated wound? Or is this my humanity?
I will say sometimes thinking about like the example we're talking about specifically and like being a mom myself and thinking about this exact pattern of sin this week in myself. Sure, we could probably draw connections to our childhoods with our impatience and our shortness with the kids. But also sometimes I think it just has to do with like kind of more short term. How has it been this like change to motherhood? What's it like to now have to be moms instead of just like be our own individual selves? And I think trauma feels a little bit big of a word there, but maybe little T trauma there, little trauma just in the change, the vastness of the change to motherhood.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a lot. So where would you say then, where would be a good example of where you have seen that like, wow, trauma really is the root of this? And like, that was like a big, and maybe this hasn't happened, but I don't know, like I don't want to say reveal, but like really helpful for the client when there was that connection made. Like, oh, like this isn't all me. Like I'm perfectly fine taking full culpability for my impatience. Like,
right.
I'm like, yes, I can work on that, but I feel like there are definitely instances, especially in that big T trauma where people are acting out of things that like, gosh, just like you're saying, like, this isn't all your fault.
Like stop yelling at yourself.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I have a couple clients who a lot of this I feel like has to do more with like emotions work than sin, but like really hate certain emotions in themselves. Like men who really hate sadness in themselves, or even women who really are afraid of sadness in themselves, like afraid to let themselves go there. And when you like go back to like, what did you learn about these emotions as a kid? And like, oh, the only acceptable emotion in your house was anger. Or, oh, the last time you felt really sad, you got really, really, really sad and in a really kind of dark place. And then being like, oh my gosh, no wonder I feel that way about anger or sadness now as an adult. And I've seen people really be able to change their relationship with their own emotions and be able to show up with their spouse or their children and be sad for like the first time in their marriage and in their family. And I think that's beautiful and so human. And also like what are our relationships if we're not able to show up with each other and how we're truly feeling, even though sometimes we don't even know how we're truly feeling because we're blocking it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like the foundation of relationships is vulnerability and honesty. And like, if we cannot be honest with ourselves, and vulnerable with ourselves, how could we possibly take that next step and be vulnerable with others or with God, like in prayer? This week, my prayer has been, do whatever he tells you, out of Luke. I can't quote the book chapter. But when Mary says it's at the wedding feast at Cana, and she says to the wine people, I'm sure they have a name, do whatever he tells you. And it's his first miracle. And I've been really sitting with it because I was like, all right, Lord, Mary, I'm gonna do whatever he tells me, no matter what. And I realized how much I'm holding it back. I'm like, okay, Lord, sitting on the couch, like thinking like, if God asked me to get up right now and like go run a mile, I think I'd say no. And like, I think we have a lot of practice doing the big things. Like, okay, Lord, I'll say yes to that, this big Fiat, or other things. But like, am I unreservedly doing whatever he tells me throughout my day and all the little things and like really having that vulnerability with him? Sorry, that was a total sidetrack. But
no, I love it. My prayer of the week related to your sin has been a gentle word turns away wrath, or a gentle answer turns away wrath. An angry word brings up anger, stirs up anger. Oof, that was a terrible quotation of it. I did have it memorized until this very moment.
I have no doubt. I'm going to use that one though, because I'm going to be reminded of that when I go to say an angry word, and I'm going to use a gentle word and a gentle voice. Just like
try, kids. Sometimes I whisper when I want to yell. It helps.
It's a great idea. I'm going to do that.
One last point that we had kind of chatted about a little bit before this was like, that like piece of responsibility. And I was kind of saying like, no one's going to say your trauma is your fault. And yet we still have responsibility for our sins.
Oh, yeah.
And yet also, I'm trying to tell people stop yelling at themselves for their sins.
Yeah.
It's like, how can we hold our sins in this like delicate balance of like responsibility and grace with ourselves in like the grace that the Lord would give us? Something I often tell people is no one has ever successfully shamed themselves into change. And we're not going to do it with your own sin now.
So good.
And like how can we have responsibility, but not so much that we're screaming at ourselves and yelling at ourselves? And also mercy, but not so much that we're excusing ourselves.
Oof. That feels like a knife's edge.
Yeah.
That you're walking of like, okay, I'm going to go, I think the grace of confession obviously is huge. I mean, required, especially when we're thinking about sin and maybe we're doing a lot of great work with a counselor or a spiritual director. Yeah. And I feel like there's kind of two types of people a lot of times. There's those who are like super scrupulous of themselves, tend towards that, of like just beating themselves up all the time. And there's people like me who's super prideful. And it's like, it's fine. I'm just going to excuse myself. It's not that big of a deal.
Right. I mean, the Lord understands.
Yeah. He's so merciful. It's fine.
I'm clearly in that camp too.
Where like my husband is like, which is wonderful and a great match for both of us, tends to be much more scrupulous. And I feel like men tend towards that a little bit more than women. And so I'm always like, give yourself some grace. And he's like, maybe you should work on that.
Are you in my house?
Yeah. We are one and the same, Lucy.
We've talked about this. Very similar.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything majorly, there's no fix it for that, walking that line. But I think having awareness of kind of where you sit on that, like, okay, I know that I tend towards that. So I'm like, okay, you got to be a little harder on yourself here. Like, don't excuse yourself so much. And versus the other side. And I did get a little sidetracked from the trauma piece. I feel like, I think that's why it's so important to work with somebody else when you're, especially with big T trauma. If you've had serious trauma in your life, the ways that is played out in your day-to-day life, like those things that are coming to the surface, the anger, the gossiping, the addiction, it's going to be really hard to resolve those without going to the root of it. You can put in all these practices of like positive self-talk or whatever, but like if you haven't really had forgiveness, let's say, then I think it'll be really hard. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah. I feel like if you're asking yourself some of the questions we've talked about today and don't feel like you can, either the answer, but don't feel like you can touch it on your own, or you feel like you don't even know the answer, that might be a good time to like find someone to talk to, whether that be a counselor, spiritual director, just a friend, mentor.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like, I think just like you were saying, like if you find yourself too, like just constantly berating yourself.
Yes.
Beating yourself up. That is not of God.
I think that is one of the like, maybe it's just my favorite. One of my things that I think is most helpful in counseling is like helping people learn to talk to themselves with kindness. The kindness of the Lord.
Yeah. The love. I mean,
yeah,
He loves us deeply. And when we beat ourselves up like that, I mean, that is like beating up His creation. And that in itself is technically a sin because He would never want that. Just like we wouldn't go out and like chop down a tree unnecessarily. That's a bad example, but hurt somebody, hurt another person. Why are we hurting ourselves?
Yes. I think that's why sometimes I make people talk to the little version of them or the little piece of them, because it's easier to show compassion to someone else that is ourself.
No, that totally makes sense. If you, somewhat pull that out and it's external to a degree, that is so much easier than thinking it's yourself. What a great conversation. Anything else we missed? Any other takeaways you want to send home with people?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I hope this was fruitful for people. I hope, obviously seek out care when you need it. We're here for you. We've got 4 counselors. I think they all have openings at this moment that we're recording. So yeah, we would love to help people come closer to the Lord. Really. I mean, that is the work.
Definitely.
Which is why I'm like constantly jealous of our counseling team. I'm like, can I come in and do that work with people? That sounds amazing. And yet so difficult.
Beautiful. Beautiful work.
Beautiful. Well, it's been great.
Thanks, Caroline.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. To learn more, you can visit our website at fiathealth.org. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. This helps make the podcast easier to find. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out, ask a question, or suggest a topic for a future show, send us an email at media@fiathealth.org. God bless.